Okay, so we're still on with the VF1. I took the tool changer plate off because I don't know if you remember in the very first video I showed you that the whole lot was wobbly underneath. So I've took it off, I've cleaned everything. It's pretty nice and flat. It's got a little bend in it, but to be fair, every tool plate I've ever seen has had a bend in it. Even the new one from Haas was not perfectly flat. It was kind of curled up. So yeah, we took it apart, we've cleaned everything off, we've redone all the bolts, and I just like to put a little bit of paint pen on them just to check, because I have had these come loose before and this ride up and the bolts start to catch, etc. So I don't Loctite them, I just like to put them in, paint mark them, so that when the tool changes in the pocket you can go through periodically and inspect to see if the bolts have backed off. Same on the other side. All I've done is clean it, make sure all the pockets are good, and everything like that is to go back on. This is the centerpiece that was in this machine, and I can't really show you one-handed, but basically the bearings inside there are gone, and this is a little bit, it's not completely jammed up, it will turn, but it's binding and it's crunchy, so the bearings need to be replaced. But I had another one of those that I had sitting on the side as a spare, and I've put it onto the machine. And I've also just started to clean up. Now you can see all this green, all this, it was everywhere. It was all on top of here. We've cleaned it up. It was in here, still a few remnants of it. So you can see that one in there has got nice new bearings fitted. Now, it seems that all the green on the machine, it's like someone has lathered everything in grease for some reason, and then what's happened, the coolant's kind of mixed with the grease and the swart's mixed with the grease, and everything has gone green. At first it's kind of like it reacts when you machine brass, but obviously it isn't brass, it's just everywhere is just completely been caked in grease. Now this machine was in a workshop, it wasn't outside, so in some senses, grease is great. Like you look up there, you can see it all. And it's not, you know, I don't know why they've done it. Because yeah, in some instances, grease is fantastic. Keeps things nice and lubricated and clean, but not all over the entire machine. It's just made an absolute mess of it. And then when we found out that this was loose, the nut here wasn't done up properly at all, so the whole changer was leaning. Depending on what tools you had on it, it would lean. So when the tool changer come in, the teeth, the dogs on the spindle would just about catch the top of the tool plate, and you could tell that it had been causing slight damage where it's worn away the edges on some of these and caught the top. So all I've gone and done, every time that compressor goes, I should learn to turn it off when I'm filming. But all these edges, all I've gone and done is just basically deburred any sharp edges, because they're nowhere near needing replacing. They're not in that kind of state. Just anywhere where there were sharp edges, where they've been dinged and banged in, I've just gone over it and sort of used the air file, this air belt sander, to file it over and just make it a bit smooth again. So we're going to put this back in the machine, and then I'll reset the tool change height and do all that so it's changing nicely again. But yeah, it's actually in, the plate's in nice condition, there's no cracks or anything like that, and although the doors are a bit worn, the springs and the door plates and everything are pretty good. So I'm going to go put that back in the machine, and that's another job ticked off the list. So yeah, let's get this back in, redo the height, and then check it changes properly. Okay, so we're back here with the VF1. Little bit of an update. So you saw earlier that I cleaned up and redone the tool changer, and that's back on the machine. You also may have seen that I jumped ahead and done a little video for your parameter 64 tool change offset height, which is done. So that side of things is running beautifully now. Tool changes are good, all the pockets line up, nothing untoward there. And I've also put some of the covers back on for the minute, rather than having the machine in a million pieces. So going through a couple of bits, the machine was just doing a warm-up. you can see how nice and quiet the high gear is on this machine. It's really beautiful. It's the quietest out of all of my machines, to be fair. So the spindle itself is sweet as a nut. Fix the light on there, new bulb in there, put the Y-axis front and rear back on. They're not sealed, they're just bolted back on to tidy it up. Obviously the tool carousel, put the number ring back on, little bit of a clean, put the bottom covers back on from when I was filling and draining the gearbox and all that sort of stuff. So I've got a couple of things to go through on this one. There's an update, actually I'll do that one in a minute. So a couple of things I've noticed so far. We've still got the noisy X-axis ball screw, but that's going to be last because that's mechanical. Whatever it is, that's parts, so that's simple. But a couple of things, I've ordered some more panels to replace these because obviously you can barely see through the frost, it's horrible, and the corners are broken. So I've ordered new ones of them, and I've also got two coming, so I've got another machine coming in a week or two. Now round here, I noticed that the oiler sits at high pressure, and since I've had the machine, I've manually pumped it. Now the pressure is not dropping, so I undone this filter, and I know in one of the Haas updates they said take out the element that's in there, and it's like a sintered bronze type stony filter, you know what I mean, you've probably seen them. Actually, here it is, right there. So they say to remove that now, not use it. Some people do, some don't. So what I've done, just to test that the pump's still cycling, I undone this and the pressure dropped straight away. I screwed this back in, I wound it back up, and I cycled the machine for a couple of hours. And the pressure, obviously it took a long time to increase the pressure up, but eventually it come up to pressure. That's where it stays. If I turn this off and go home tonight, that's pretty much where it sits. So all I done earlier on is I manually took off the spindle line for the minute, and I put some drops of oil down it so I can warm up cycle the spindle, knowing that there's going to be a bit of oil to the bearings and you're not running it dry. But there's obviously a pressure issue on the other side of this system, which is not allowing that to drop. So the pump itself is doing the cycle. The pump itself is cycling, so that side of it works. Oil, when you pull the lever, comes out to here fine. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to trace it back around the system to find out. It's got to be held up before it splits off, I'm thinking. So immediately behind here, I think is where it's gummed up, because I'm pretty sure it's not going to be blocked on all three axes, causing that to back up. Because if it got to all three axes, even if two of them were blocked and one wasn't, you'd still get a pressure drop, and we're not getting anything. So that tells me there's an issue immediately behind here. And also, if you look behind there, you'll see there's a lot of swoof and crud built up in there. So I'm going to get behind there, and we will be able to use our trusty Freddy vacuum, and we'll hoover all that out. We'll give it a good clean up. Now, going back in here, the warm-up cycle will finish in a couple of minutes, but again, lovely and quiet. With regards to the X phasing error, when you power with a machine up, I've had a little bit of a telltale sign, which someone may be able to again help me in the right direction, because I've found that if I power the machine up with the E-stop out, I get X phasing error. If I power the machine up with the E-stop in, I do not get X phasing error. Now, I'm not sure what that has to do in relation to anything on the system, but obviously if the E-stop system is activated, when you power it up, you don't get the phasing error. Like I said before, you could hit reset and the phasing error disappears. So if you push the E-stop in every time, then the phasing error, the X phasing error alarm, does not appear, which I find strange. Now, does that say anything to any of you in the directions that I should be looking and things I should be following? I've tried the wires on the Mocon, like people said, motors. I've tried every suggestion that I've come across so far. We've done grid offsets and everything seems okay. So let me just show you. Let's stop that one. Let's just go T5. Lovely tool changes there. Okay, so let's turn the machine off. We'll power it down. And now you'll see there the E-stop is out. Push it in, it's out. Let's power it on. And now we will get, I promise you, we will get X phasing error. Takes a second to boot up. And there we go, X phasing error. Same as before, you can just hit that and it disappears. Carry on. Now if you power the machine off, push the E-stop in and power it back on again, you'll notice now that we do not get the X phasing error. See, no X phasing error. And I've tried this probably 20 or 30 times to confirm, and if the E-stop is out, X phasing error will happen every single time, and if the E-stop is pushed in, X phasing error will not happen anytime. So what that has to do with anything, maybe someone can point me in the right direction, because I don't know, but it must have relevance to something. Why that E-stop being in or out makes a difference, not too sure. So far I've also found if I push the E-stop in and the X phasing error is not there, when I do the home in, you don't get the servo error too large. So you can see everything else is running beautifully. So yes, E-stop in, error disappears, doesn't even occur. E-stop out, error's there every time. Does that mean anything? I don't know. So yeah, we're going to have to look at the oiling system. We're going to replace these windows, but there'll be a couple of weeks probably before I get them on order, or they're on order, but there'll be a couple of weeks. So it's oiling system, and I'm still going to work at the X phasing error. Then we're going to clean up the coolant tank, get some coolant hose. We'll put the Swolf chute on there so I can run some coolant through the system and a new coolant line as well as the hose, because we cut it off the side. So I'll add the hose, take the cover off again, put a hose up down. This is the old one, really brittle, and if they leak and split, I've had one split up there before, luckily just after the bend, and it floods the head with coolant. If you're really unlucky and it splits the other side, you can flood your cabinet and cause ridiculous amounts of damage. So don't overlook the coolant line. Something cheap and simple, it can be a pain to change, but worst case, just put the coolant line on the outside so you can change it every few years, because if it goes wrong, it can cost you big time. So yeah, that's the update. Short and sweet. Like and subscribe to the channel if you like what you see, and we'll see you again on the next one.